Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start off today by taking to a website that we're going to be looking at a lot over the coming weeks and months. It's water.weather.gov/AHPS. And on this particular site, you'll be first taken to the River Observation tab. And what I've done is I've shown only those river gauges across the country that are currently in some flood stage. Now, we'll see a lot of change in this map coming soon because we have a lot of snowpack in the upper Midwest and northern plains, especially in the headwaters of the Mississippi River. There's up to 10 inches of liquid in this snow here, and it will eventually melt and come down the Mississippi, which will be important for understanding the spring flood issues in the low-lying areas of the Mississippi Basin. We'll also see a lot of changes over here in the west because right now in the Sierra Nevada, we know there's between 80 and 100 inches of liquid in that snowpack, and more is coming in the coming days and weeks. And as a result of that, this is going to increase the flood threat. Even though we already see just a handful of gauges here showing flooding problems in California, I know we've seen a lot more flooding in and throughout this area given how much recent precipitation we've seen. We can also show you this map, one we're going to look at a lot in the coming days because there is still more snow getting added to this pattern despite us moving towards spring quite rapidly here. The last 72 hours, we can now fully capture the size of the system that went through the northeast around the Hudson Valley, several places picking up well in excess of 30 inches. Remember that in the days leading up to this, snow did come through parts of the northern plains and upper Midwest, and that's not shown on this map, but we had heavy snows in through this area as well. Out west, over the last 3 days, the Sierra Nevada, some places did add up to 4 feet of snow down here in the southern parts of the Sierra Nevada. And right now, there are some estimates that this is now going to take over as the highest ranking snow season in the central and southern Sierra Nevada mountains on record. We have a lot of snow that is coming to the Colorado Rockies very soon. We've got 130% of snowpack on the Sierra Nevada, and the week 2 forecast trends have improved the moisture for the Pacific Northwest. Unfortunately, it keeps it quite cold in this area, but at least there's moisture that's going to be there when the spring melt begins, hopefully by the time we get into April. Very cold go of it right now across the western United States. We'll talk about all of that more in tonight's in-depth report, and we're also going to look at some of these longer-term precipitation maps, because the map we're looking at now is just the last 72 hours of total accumulated precip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that now to look over the last 7 days. And what this is doing is really showing how wet California has been, how much moisture has moved in through the Intermountain West, what came into the Willamette Valley and north, and then this is all snow, this has all been snow, and this has all been heavy rain. What we also need to examine in this map is who's been missing out on this. While moisture has come through parts of Texas, we still see much of the plains showing up dry. And if we look over the last 30 days, this is an area that continues to show up dry. This map shows percent of normal precipitation over those last 30 days. Corrections, I think, will be seen to this map. I think we'll see better moisture in Kansas. In fact, some is coming today. This part of Oklahoma and eastern Texas and all throughout the Gulf Coast through the mid-Atlantic. There's a lot more moisture coming in the coming days and weeks in this area. Unfortunately, more precip is coming into the west, but I don't anticipate seeing much of a change in the drought monitor when it's released. Probably about an hour from when I'm recording this, the new drought monitor should be out. I don't expect a lot of change in the plains when we get the new drought monitor. More improvement in the west, but not much change here. So let's get into this near-term forecast. Our all hazards weather map early this morning shows winter storm watches, warnings, and winter weather advisories on the northern side of the system that's coming out of the Rocky Mountains where there are winter storm warnings here. Very strong winds from New Mexico and Texas up into Iowa. And even though we see frost watch out here, a freeze watch out here, for Arkansas, Tennessee, this particular area is going to see a pretty big swing in temperatures today as this warm sector opens up. Now, the frost and freeze warnings made it pretty far to the south here in the southeast. And behind this system that's going to go through the Midwest, there's another big shot at some colder air. But what I'm concerned about is how quickly that cold air gets here and what the front that's going to be producing, the leading edge of that cold air will be producing in terms of severe weather. Because by the middle of the day today, you're going to see the main frontal boundary slicing right in through here, fed on its eastern side with flow coming around this big subtropical high that's going to pump moisture in. The dry line will move through parts of eastern Texas. This is where we're expecting the setup for severe weather. And as the system comes through, this warm sector that opens up with a lot of moisture will quickly destabilize You add to that the high wind shear that's over the top of this area, and the Storm Prediction Center has increased this area to an enhanced risk today. So we're going to keep a very close eye on this area this afternoon and this evening. Now you can already see what the temperatures are going to do today. Very rapid change behind this, but large warm sector opening up out ahead of it. Again, where that dry line pushes east, we're going to keep an eye out for this area for the strong to severe storms. Now, on the northern side of it, we are expecting some snow. And this is from the National Digital Forecast Database from this morning, looking at total snowfall through Sunday morning, so now through Sunday morning. We can see this 2 to 5 inch swath into this area, coming out of parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, northwestern Iowa, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. And then we can also see the heavy snows that are coming here into parts of the upper Colorado Basin, but the Colorado Rockies adding more snow into that area. So let's go look at it here by going to the high-res NAM. One of the things I want to point out is later today, this is getting through midday today into this afternoon, this evening, do note that there is moisture coming into New Mexico that panhandles parts of Kansas as well. But then out ahead of it, we're going to be watching out for supercell development in the warm sector, and then this kind of squall line that could race through later on this evening, swiping through parts of eastern Oklahoma into Texas, a big elongated frontal squall line into this area. So this is through 10 o'clock tonight. You can see the snow on the northern side, the rain that's moving through the eastern Corn Belt, and then by the time we get into early Friday morning, this front presses pretty quickly through the southeast. And there is the risk for strong to severe storms on Friday afternoon and evening into this part of the country as this front quickly moves through the Carolinas, gets through the mid-Atlantic, and crosses the east coast. Now behind it, the high pressure that sinks in has got some really cold air in it. And what I'm concerned about there is how far to the south that colder air makes it. So these are morning low temperatures, or actually I should just say daily low temperatures. Sometimes they're in the morning, sometimes they're not. But we're looking at daily low temperatures on Friday morning here, getting into Saturday morning. So take note of where the frost line would be. This is now getting into Sunday morning. There it is. And then into Monday morning. So this is the kind of the extent of that very cold air we're going to have to keep an eye on here Friday through Monday. Do note that we're going to be dipping down here into the negative single digits in parts of the northern plains on the 19th of March. Amazing to see that cold air in place. Now, does the pattern moderate after this? It does somewhat, but overall we keep a colder bias around through the end of March. So I just want to show you here, let's get that sized up right. This is where we are looking over the next 7 days in gray where there could be frost potential. Now what we're really looking at here is how far to the south it gets. And we've been talking about how these two cold waves could possibly push into some areas that will have some damage to the vegetation because of this frost. So we got to watch this carefully. All right. From here, I just want to show you again what we're expecting over the next 7 days in terms of total accumulated precipitation. And the systems that will be producing this, well, we can go to our multi-model analysis, GFS on the left and European on the right, to see the timing. So we've already watched through Sunday morning. So let's pick up there with these new model runs. So this is Sunday morning, playing in through Monday into Tuesday. And I just want to take note here again. On Sunday, with that colder air, possibility of seeing some snow in parts of New Mexico, western Texas, and moisture into that area as well, which is good. But the high pressure dominates the weekend. This is the cold air that we're expecting to come through the middle part of the United States. As soon as Monday, we've already got moisture returning to the west. This would stretch all the way from almost the whole of the I-5 corridor here. And what we're going to notice is going into Monday evening, our next push of moisture is coming into the western United States. Now, that's going to be a common feature Monday, Tuesday, and even into Wednesday of next week. And you'll notice that the models are diverging a bit on the size and scope of this system by next Wednesday, Thursday, coming out into the plains. It'll likely have snow on its northern side, so this would be Wyoming to parts of South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin. But we are seeing these warm sectors move farther and farther to the north with time, which is a sign that spring is trying to get here. But as we keep playing, notice more moisture is coming into the western United States with each of these systems, which is why when we look over the next 10 days, the probability of getting at least an inch of liquid is highest in the mid-south and southeast, but also throughout the eastern Corn Belt and then in the west, getting over to the Colorado Rockies and the Four Corners states. The drier regions are largely going to be throughout the western plains getting up into the Canadian prairie, but there's quite a bit of cold air coming in with this as well. I do want to note that the latest updates from the CPC are showing less cold in the eastern half of the country to finish the month of March, more cold anchored in the west. But they did trend wetter, and so did the European models, so did the GFS, did trend wetter for the Pacific Northwest, which could push them kind of in this last go of it before spring should get here with some good snows. There's still going to be more, but it's still a good push here at the end. To finish this up, let's take a look at what the European model says about those temperatures. Are they in line with what the CPC is suggesting? And overall, while we do see maybe toward the end of March a little bit more mild air here, there's not a full breakover to mild conditions for the country being forecast right now through the start of April. We may need to, as we've been talking about, wait till we get past the first few days of April to see if the MJO finally moves around and comes out of the West Pacific to maybe open up the jet stream to some more mild air by shifting it back to the north. That's what I'll be watching for. We'll talk about that a lot in tonight's in-depth report. Also covered in tonight's in-depth report is going to be this. The newest updates for April, May, and June put out by the IRI Multi-Model Probability Forecast System out of Columbia University. Notice that April, May, and June, no strong precipitation signals across the country. What I will do tonight is show you the differences between this year and last year, because this is critical to see this forecast for spring. And even though it is cold now, most long-range models are projecting more mild spring conditions going forward. We'll look at all of it tonight. We will also have an in-depth discussion on this, and this is really quite important. The Bureau of Meteorology out of Australia just released an El Nino watch for this upcoming year, and they are by far the most aggressive on returning very warm ocean temperatures to the Central Pacific. They have right now got this up to around 2 degrees C above normal by August. And this actually pushes almost into the realm of strong El Nino, maybe even if the Bureau of Meteorology has this right. And I'm not saying this to create any hype, but this is kind of up near that like super El Nino territory. Now, we're always going to question this. Is this accurate? Is this going to really transition this quickly? But we need to assess what this would mean for spring, summer, and fall precipitation patterns and temperature patterns, not only across the U.S., but across the world. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. Finally, just want to show you what's going on in South America. Models continue to forecast better rains arriving to Argentina and Uruguay. Drier conditions in central and eastern Brazil are going to allow harvest efforts to continue. Mato Grosso do Sul will continue to see delays with harvest. But where the new crop, the safrinha crop's planted in Mato Grosso, heavy rains are going to push that crop along pretty quickly. So I'll pick up with you again tonight when I get home. I won't get home till about 9 o'clock. Leaving Tucson, been a beautiful place. I will definitely be coming back here, but I'm very excited to be back in the central time zone because these 2:45 a.m. starts are getting a little bit tiring here on what would be a quick family vacation. So I look forward to being back. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be watching a lot of basketball and not really caring too much about the forecast. I understand that. But we'll look forward to just getting back on a regular cadence of forecast videos for you. I appreciate your patience. We'll talk soon. Thanks.